All right. And good morning, everyone. Welcome to the John Lavenia Success Mastermind group. Today is September 15th. This is a general session, and I am Stuart Wilde, and I am honored and grateful to be with you guys today and to host today's session. I've got some cool stuff I wanted to discuss with you guys, and I have a little slideshow that I'll pull out in a minute. I had a different topic for today, and then over the last couple of weeks, a lot of people have been dropping in the chat or mentioning things about the four agreements, Toltec wisdom, being an impeccable warrior, things like that. Some of you guys may remember a few months back, I dropped a couple of references to the Carlos Castaneda books that I remember reading as a young man. And really, I wanted to share with you guys that those books really influenced my life in a lot of ways. The principles described in the Castaneda books, the Don Juan series, is really something that I've taken to heart and have incorporated into my own personal belief system and the way that I move through this world. And so I wanted to share some of this stuff with you guys, see if it resonated with you, and see if there are some of these principles, techniques, ideas, concepts that you guys use in your daily life or would consider using in your daily life. I'll do a quickie little intro in terms of the Don Juan books. And so if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, Carlos Castaneda was an author. He passed, I want to say in 1998, but in the late 60s, he wrote the first of a series of 8 books about the teachings of Don Juan Matus, a Yaqui shaman from central Mexico. The Yaqui tribe are from the Sonora region in Mexico. And I believe there's even Yaqui people to this day in Arizona as well. The first book was written in 1968. It was called The Teachings of Don Juan, The Yaqui Way of Knowledge. And then there's just, book after book after book. There's so much information in there. Carlos Castaneda in the 60s was a anthropology student and an ethnobotanist. And in the 60s, really what that meant was that he wanted to go out in the desert and find some shaman to give him peyote so that he could have psychotropic experiences and things like that. And what he found was a Yaqui shaman, a guy by the name of Don Juan Matus. And to Castaneda's surprise, there was a lot less about taking psychotropes and a lot more about, let's say, spiritual matters. And so one of the things that Don Juan taught Castaneda was how to be an impeccable warrior. And so that's kind of the topic of our discussion today, the path of the warrior, impeccability, and the 4 agreements. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and we'll roll on. You guys with me? Let's see here. Nice. And then I'm just going to make this a slide.
Lost sound on you, Stuart. Lost sound. You're muted.
Sorry, I don't know how that happened. I'm back. You guys ready? Sorry about that. Try that again. All right.
All good.
You with me, everybody? All right. The path of the warrior, impeccability, and the 4 agreements. Here's a quote from Don Juan, from one of the many books. The basic difference between an ordinary person and a warrior is that a warrior takes everything as a challenge, while an ordinary person takes everything as a blessing or a curse. So it's sort of like, being cause or being, affected, right? And my hope is that you'll find a lot of things in these quotes and in these concepts that really mirror a lot of the mindset stuff that we're learning in terms of Napoleon Hill, James Allen, things like that. So I would just want to give a quick little recap on the fact that most cultures around the world and religions have some version of a warrior priest or a warrior monk that actually fought physical battles, but I really want to make a distinction that I'm really talking more about a spiritual warrior. Being a warrior does not necessarily have to involve engaging in physical violence. Okay, so to be a warrior means that we slay our personal dragons and our demons. We face our fears, our self-doubt, our limiting beliefs, and that which keeps us from our true self and our unlimited potential. Also means that we need to be vigilant guardians at the gates of our minds, right? And that kind of works both ways in terms of what we let in, what we let out. We've talked a little bit about, let's say, enemies, both foreign and domestic, meaning we can often be our own worst enemy, right? Through negative self-talk and self-doubt and things like that, and inner dialogue. And then also externally from naysayers and negative people and negative experiences in our life. A warrior works to perfect ourselves, we achieve our highest potential, and also to be of service. And if you don't like the concept of warrior, if it implies violence to you, I'm just going to throw out some other concepts here, right? So there's the spiritual warrior, the peaceful warrior, and what we can even call the mindset warrior, okay? I want to give you a quick little history here, spiritual warriors in history and religion. So in Christianity, of course, you have Jesus Christ, who, in the desert rebukes the adversary, right? Then we also have like the Arthurian legends and the dragon slayers of the Middle Ages and things like that. And then also the Knights Templar, which are holy warriors as well. In Hinduism, you have the Virabhadra, which is the warrior friend, and the interesting story of Shiva, who cuts one of his dreadlocks off and grows this supernatural being that is the warrior friend who goes and does Shiva's vengeance, let's say. And if you know yoga, and I know that we have several yogis and practitioners here, this is where you get the Virabhadrasana, which are the warrior poses in yoga. Okay, and the three poses are mimicking the Virabhadra who comes out of the earth and then takes the sword and cuts the head off of the enemy and then reaches forward and places the head on the pike, right? So that's interesting stuff there. And in Taoism, you have what are called the immortals, which are the Taoist masters that transcend physical reality. These are the Qian Ren. And I would argue there that the Jedi Order, you'll see in a couple weeks, we'll do a session on the Tao of Yoda. But Yoda and the Jedi Order really mimic Taoism with the Force and the light and the dark and the yin and the yang and things like that. And then, of course, in Buddhism, in India, you have the Buddha, right, who clears away the Maya and illusion and becomes enlightened. Then in Tibetan Buddhism, you have what's called the Sempa, which is the heroic being. And this also is translated to the spiritual warrior. And this is actually where we get the modern concept of the spiritual warrior that was passed on through Tibetan Buddhism in the Dhammapada, all the way to Theosophy in the late 1800s into essentially the New Age movement, and that's where we get the spiritual warrior. Then you have the shaman, which that word comes from Northern Europe, let's say the Arctic Circle and Siberia, and you have the Sami shaman, and Sami means one who knows. And then what we're going to talk about today is the Toltec and Aztec culture. The language that those people speak is Nahuatl, and which has sort of evolved into Nahual. And then the Spanish kind of brought the word shaman, and if you didn't know, that's how you spell shaman, with an X. Okay, and then I'm going to do a little etymology on impeccable. Okay, so if you look up impeccable in the dictionary, it says without sin. Okay, we talked about this a little bit a couple weeks ago. We may all have different definitions of sin, or you can go with the biblical version. I like to think of sin as that which keeps us from God or our true selves or our true potential. In Latin, sin is peccare. In Greek, it's hamartano. In Hebrew, it's hata. And while it may mean sin in the colloquial, the literal translation is actually to miss the mark. And so to be impeccable means that you can't miss or you can't fail. So this, again, I immediately think of Dorothea Brandt and act as if it's impossible to fail. So these are kind of the basic overviews of the teachings of how to be an impeccable warrior. to be impeccable with our words and actions, to lose our self-importance, to erase our personal history, and to learn how to deal with petty tyrants. And I'll go over each of these real quick. Okay, so how we can be impeccable with our words and actions, the most obvious is to keep our word, right? And to act with integrity. And we all know that that's one of our favorite words here on the John Lavenia Success Mastermind Network. And if you didn't know, integrity comes from the Greek integer, which means to make whole. So it's very interesting. If you act to make whole, either for yourself or for other people, that is acting in integrity. Always doing the right thing, even when nobody's looking, even when you don't think you need to, right? It's really about, ethics. To be painfully honest with ourselves about our own shortcomings or about things that we need to work on our personal growth. To take full responsibility for our words and our actions, not to blame other people, to stop our internal dialogue, which again, I think about negative self-talk that we learn about in the success mindset books. Don Juan says, don't use your word against yourself. And I just thought that was really cool. And that's that concept of the negative self-talk and the internal dialogue, is that we often are our own worst enemies and that we use our words against ourselves. And then also Don Juan says, do your best, whatever you're engaged in. I take that as the way you do anything is the way you do everything, right? Always do your best. And then an impeccable warrior treats every act like it's their last act on this earth. So imagine for a second, think about that if everything that you did, you treated it like it was the last thing you were going to do on this earth, right? Would you do it differently? Would you act with integrity? Would you act with impeccability, right? Here's a cool quote from Don Juan on impeccability. And I kid you not, this seems like it comes right out of, Napoleon Hill to me. Impeccability begins with a single act that has to be deliberate, precise, and sustained. If that act is repeated long enough, one acquires a sense of unbending intent, which can be applied to anything else. If that is accomplished, the road is clear. One thing will lead to another until the warrior realizes his or her full potential. That also reminds me of Neville Goddard and Bridge of Incidents, and that one thing leads to another until you achieve your goal. Cool stuff. And then this is Don Juan on self-importance. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Self-importance. So losing our self-importance. And I want to make a distinction between self-image and self-importance, right? And to me, self-image is, self-image is a positive thing. It's how we can perceive ourselves in this world where we can be in our personal power, but it doesn't mean power over, and it doesn't mean arrogance, and it doesn't, it's sort of a step back from the ego. Whereas self-importance is really a function of the ego, where we think, that we're so important that we get offended by everything, and how could that person say that or do that to me. But the concept is that we are all equally special. We are not more important than anyone else, right? We're important, but you're not necessarily more important than anybody else. We can choose to stop being offended or affected by others' actions or words. We choose how we act and react to situations and circumstances. Again, that concept of, thinking we're so important that, how could that person say that or do that to me? And feel that we're so special that we get so offended by these things. One of the things that I always remember from these books was not to be self-indulgent, right? And there's a concept that we've been learning in Think and Grow Rich as well, but it's essentially that concept of don't dwell on the negative, right? Oh, that was in the mental diet, right? Don't entertain, don't dwell. It's one thing to have a negative thought. It's another thing to sort of brood over it and internalize it. And then it kind of, ruins your day and then some. And then the understanding that it's not always about us, right? So here's what Don Juan says on self-importance. Forget the self and you will fear nothing in whatever level of awareness you find yourself to be. Think about it. What weakens us is feeling offended by the deeds and misdeeds of our fellow men. Our self-importance requires that we spend most of our lives being offended by someone. The other step is erasing personal history. And I think for those of you that have read the 4 agreements, you'll note that this stuff didn't really make it in there. And I think a lot of people might have an issue with the concept of erasing your personal history. We talked about this a little bit, but really the way I look at this is that we are more than our family or our genetic history. We can honor and acknowledge our lineage and our heritage and our families and where we come from, but we can still have a healthy dose of detachment as in Buddhism, or indifference as in Stoicism. Erasing personal history can be a helpful tool to stay out of the fray at family gatherings and not get sucked into arguments and negative experiences. And on a personal level, I found that, that erasing personal history was really helpful as a tool to reinvent myself, to separate and break free from social programming and indoctrination. And the way that I look at this, you know, and many of you guys may come from challenging or traumatic upbringings or dysfunctional families, you know, addiction, abuse, all kinds of things. And to me, it was really helpful as a young man to be able to separate myself from my family history, or at least my family situation. And I've come back to, let's say, reincorporate all those things, but it really helped to give me a perspective. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that as well. And so here's a couple of quotes on erasing personal history. If you have no personal history, no explanations are needed. Nobody is angry or disillusioned with your acts. And above all, no one pins you down with your thoughts. It is best to erase all personal history because that makes us free from the encumbering thoughts of other people. You have to be aware of the uselessness of your self-importance and personal history. A couple things I note here is that both of these quotes, the top 2 quotes, talk about being free from the thoughts of others, people pinning us down with their thoughts or encumbering us with their thoughts. And I'd love to hear your take on that. This honestly was probably one of the more, what would I say? One of the more important things to me, you know, growing up, and honestly on a daily life, right? To me, Don Juan talks about dealing with petty tyrants, okay? And a petty tyrant is really just a way of saying the people in our lives that compress our buttons or trigger us. There are degrees of tyranny, and I put tyranny in quotes because these can just be people that annoy us or people that press our buttons, and they can also be people that really tyrannize us. But what's interesting is that in the books, Don Juan talks about the different levels of petty tyrants. One he calls tyrannos, right? The tyrants. Then you have petito tyrannos. Then you have petititos tiranitos, right? So it's sort of like the smaller gnat, the mosquito, the thing that just bothers you that you need to just kind of get out of your mental space. These can be family, friends, strangers. I like to, you know, also associate that with gatekeepers. If you're like ever trying to, you know, get something done through the phone or business or whatever it is, and somebody feels really powerful, that they're in your way between, you know, where you are and where you want to get to or who you want to speak with or whatever that is. You can also apply that to naysayers and people that are negative and don't believe in you and things like that. And my feeling on this is that these are opportunities always to work on losing our self-importance, dealing with our personal history, and working on our mental discipline. And I think it's probably, maybe you guys would agree, that one of the more challenging things that we have to deal with to stay in a good, healthy, positive mindset is dealing with petty tyrants. A petty tyrant is a tormentor, someone who either holds the power of life and death over warriors or simply annoys them to distraction. Petty tyrants teach us detachment. The ingredients of the New Seer strategy shows us how efficient and clever the device of using a petty tyrant, right? So using the petty tyrant to your benefit for personal growth. This strategy not only gets rid of self-importance, it also prepares warriors for the final realization that impeccability is the only thing that counts in the paths of knowledge. And I know that a lot of folks have talked about the Four Agreements. So sort of at the tail end of Castaneda's books, a guy named Don Miguel Ruiz wrote a book called The Four Agreements in the late 90s. And it was essentially a distillation of all of the Toltec wisdom and how to be an impeccable warrior that were in all of the Castaneda books. And so this is, it's a cool little book. It's a very small little book. And like I said, it's sort of a distilled version of everything that we're talking about. So the Four Agreements, as per Don Miguel Ruiz, is to be impeccable with your word. Notice that I expanded that to be impeccable with your word and your actions. Don't take anything personally, which really speaks to our level of self-importance, right? Don't make assumptions. And here I want to make a distinction between external assumptions and internal assumptions. And you guys have heard me say this a few times already. I fully believe that external assumptions are not such a great thing, right? And so that's what creates expectations and disappointment when we make assumptions and expectations and put those things on other people. And I will call those external assumptions. Internal assumptions, I want to talk about it another time with you guys because it really is a mindset hack, and definitely one of the ways that we can create our own reality is through making internal assumptions. And we'll talk about that another time. And then the fourth of the Four Agreements is always do your best. And again, that speaks to impeccability. So there you go. That's the Four Agreements. And then I'm going to leave you with some song lyrics from one of my favorite songs, Live Like a Warrior, from Matisyahu. Today, live like you want to. Let yesterday burn. Throw it in the fire. Live like a warrior. There you go. I'm going to pop off here and then we can chat. Look at that, 22 minutes, not so bad. All right, what do you think of that? Who's got something to say? No hands? What's up? Adrian, my brother.
I'll start the ball rolling. Fantastic, Stuart. I mean, your grasp of these things and your depth of knowledge and insights is amazing on this. I think you should be delivering these talks wearing philosopher's robes. We'll have to get you some on Amazon. We'll but no, there's so much. I think we could speak for weeks. You've covered so many topics. I'd love you to come back to some of those as well and take them a bit further because they are so thought-provoking. Very interesting how those concepts have cropped up in some of the more modern books that we've been looking at as well, which just shows you there is a tapestry connecting all of this. And if we latch onto some of the key concepts, they will take us throughout the whole subject. I was very interested in what you said about changing the past and having no identity and being able to study it. That's very interesting. And it made me think of going to foreign countries. I've moved a couple of times to a foreign country. And what I noticed is that you're totally liberated. Nobody can place your accent or your class or who you are because they don't use the normal stereotypes they would use in your home country where they automatically make assumptions when you meet them about where you're from, your accent, etc., etc. So it is very true, actually, that you can fracture the past in that way and be totally free from any preconceptions. It's very interesting. But thanks enormously, Stuart. That was wonderful.
Oh, you're welcome, man. Thank you. Thanks for your input. Yeah, liberating, I think, is a great word for that. And I'd be interested in hearing anybody else's thoughts on that. All right, I'm going to lower your hand there, Adrian. Evelyn, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
I am doing all right today.
Hey, everyone. This is so good, Stuart. Talking about religion, I was like, okay, where is he going? And with this, but it reminds me of a conversation I've had recently about things that we go through, things that get to you. And if you don't grow, spiritually speaking, depending on who's saying this, it will get to you. And we all have baggage. We all have things in our past that have caused hurt, pain. We get stuck. We don't move forward. And what I've learned because of the conversation I had is a cruise that I did with women entrepreneurs. And it was a lot of fun, but we also worked really hard. And one of the exercises we did towards the end of the trip was to write down, to journal the things that have impacted us, positive or negative. But mainly this exercise that I'm talking about was the negative things. Something someone said, something that someone did, and something that may have happened, but you need to write it down, because they said that when you write it down, you're taking it out of here and here, out of your head, out of your heart. And then when you're done, either you tear it and throw it away, or you burn it. What we did was burn it. Done. You guys are done. Get that negative influence, whatever has been grabbing you and holding you down, and get rid of it. And for those of you, if you're like me, we all have stuff, that we may resent. Try it. Just the act of writing it down is better than typing it up, and just move on, move forward, and, follow the 4 agreements, be impeccable with your world. Do not take anything personally. Unfortunately, we do. We always have this thing that we think that is an attack, it's a personal attack. Do not make any external assumptions. Sometimes we may not hear back from someone, a client, a person that you're assisting, a boss, they're not getting back to you, and you're already assuming that this person doesn't care, that this person is ignoring your email, that is ignoring your calls, and we have no idea what this person may be going through. Maybe they just lost someone. Maybe they're displaced for whatever reason, right? And we're, hate to say it, we're human. We will do these things, but to close it, I would say always do your best.
It's like the Boy Scout, Girl Scout oath or whatever. Yeah, it's just being,
Yeah.
and I will say like that, all those things about being impeccable, right? When I look at that list of, keeping your word, having integrity, doing the right thing, whether you're talking about matters of the spirit or life or business, right? These are all good practices, let's say. So thank you, Evelyn. And let's say hi to Ivier.
Hello, Stuart.
Hello,
Wonderful
Ivier.
as always. Raising the bar, thought-provoking. Oh, what else can I say? So I was, as you were talking, I was thinking, and I know that I've reinvented myself quite a few times, so much so that I've even changed my name. So I mean, as quickly as I knew how, or as soon as I figured out that I could and it was legal, I just broke ties with, my dad's side of the family, because I just thought, I don't want history repeating itself in my lifetime. Thank you very much. So this was even, and then even more so after I got married and got divorced, I just thought, I don't really want to be carrying this baggage around with me. So not only did I move continents, but I changed my name and pretty much just reinvented myself totally. So I get the whole, you're not your heritage, you're more than, your family, your legacy and all of that. And I think we can, as individuals, rewrite history. We can leave the kind of legacy we want to leave. We don't have to live in the shadow of what, our predecessors or ancestors or whatever have done. So that for me was life-changing, because as soon as I did that, it was like I had a new lease of life and I could just go and make my own way in the world. I wasn't constrained. I wasn't in some contraption where I had to live up to somebody else's standards. Yeah, it was just really freeing. So that was one thing. The second thing you spoke about that probably hit home for me was, it doesn't matter what I do, how mundane it is. I used to say to somebody, if the only job you can find is to be a street sweeper, be the best street sweeper that has ever existed. Because while you're doing that street sweeping job with excellence, you're going to stand out. People are going to walk past you. They're going to see that you're doing such a menial job with an excellent spirit, and you just never know where your promotion is going to come from. So, even when I thought, I was overqualified for jobs and that was all that was going, I would still put my hat in the ring. I'd apply just because I thought I don't really want to sit on my backside and not, pull my own weight. So whatever it was that was out there after the financial crisis, you know, whatever, I would apply for jobs that I knew I was clearly overqualified for, because I just thought I need to be responsible. I'm the first of 6 kids. I need to set the right example. Maybe that was pressure from family. I don't know. But I've always just had this, you know, ethical, and I've got to be responsible. And I have to be a role model, et cetera, et cetera. So whether I was a waitress or a salesperson or, you know, it didn't matter how menial it was. I just did it with an excellent spirit. And I think that has served me well, because when I got into the organization I'm in now, they said to me, why did you apply for this? 1, you got a master's. 2, you're way overqualified. I said, well, it's a brand new area. It's something I don't know. It's an opportunity to learn. And I like the sound of the organization, and hopefully it's a place I can grow with. And I think that answer probably challenged the panel of interviewers. And this is now 10 years on, I'm still with the organization. And in fact, the reason why I didn't join Nicola's call this afternoon was because I had a director on the phone to me, as well as HR, saying, you know, it's amazing how much of a subject expert I am. And they were going on and on and on about, they don't understand that I don't have a degree in this, that how do I know what I know? And I said, well, it just means anything I put my hands to, I do it with an excellent spirit. So it's just amazing that you're talking about this an hour after that call. And yeah, it's bringing all of that up for me. So yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, always do your best. And the way you do anything is the way you do everything, right? And if you put that kind of attention and care into whatever it is that you're doing, people take notice, right? Absolutely. And I think your recent windfall of wonderful things attests to that. Thank you. Allison, what's up?
Hello, can you
Hello.
hear me?
Yes.
Hi, brilliant. So many things there to talk about. But I just wanted to say I was away last week doing some cycling, long distance cycling. And there were just things, it just seemed the whole thing was such an incredible analogy for our journey that we're doing here. And I'm just so happy on my bike. And I was thinking, what is it about this cycling that makes me so happy? And it was just the simplicity of having a goal. So we had a place we had to get to every day, had nothing but 2 panniers on the back of the bike. So no baggage, just the absolute minimum that we needed, because we didn't want the weight. And all you had to focus on that day was to get to that place, to get to that goal. And no matter what came, you know, one day we had 3 punches, another day we'd gone miles up into the mountains and we were coming downhill, and there was only one way to go, and there was a weak bridge that had been shut and fenced off. So we either went back miles and miles uphill, which was just not an option. So we just had to unload the bikes, climb over the fence, lift our bikes over the fence, test the bridge that it could just take 2 people one more time, and just keep going forward, And it just, and the different ways that I was with my sister, and we had different ways that we handled things like going up the hills. I would get into a rhythm and just get there as quickly as I could up to the top. And my sister would stop and start, and she'd stop, have a rest, do a little bit more, then stop and start. And we both had different ways of doing it. It was just how our bodies worked, but we both got to the top in the end. We both had the reward of the amazing view. We both got there. So it doesn't matter how you do it. And it just was, there was just so many things. But I think the main thing here with what you were talking about is that losing the baggage and just coming every day with just what you need, and losing that back history. It's gone, it's over. And you've just got a new journey ahead of you. It's just a...
Thank you, Allison. What a great adventure story that was. I like the analogy of getting rid of our baggage, and tying that into sort of a minimalist cycling trip where you just, you know, have what you got in your panier, right, in your panniers, and sort of a minimalist approach to life, right? Just kind of what you have. And I have to say, like, we have a little travel trailer, and sometimes I just like going in there because, like, none of my stuff, or let's say a lot less of my stuff is in there, and so there's sort of this liberating feeling of you know, not having all these things and all this baggage. So I appreciate that. The other thing I'll mention, you were talking about, you know, the physical challenge, right? And often at the first sign of a physical challenge, it's this that tends to give out before the body, right? And we immediately start thinking to ourselves, oh, this is too hard. I can't do this, you know, and whether we're climbing mountains or you know, cycling or trying something new or whatever, that concept of, you know, we got to keep our mental game in check, because the moment something gets hard, you know, the wounded child in us wants to say, oh, that's too hard, I can't do it, right? So thanks for sharing that. Hong-san and Elmer, what's up?
Hello. Thank you so much, Stuart, and everyone for today's topic and discussion. I felt compelled to speak because there were so many things, like, during the presentation that I was like, oh, that's, you know, that resonated with me, that I just had to say something. I just wanted to say that I am so grateful for this group because I feel that, you know, everyone comes forward and shares from their heart and speaks authentically about their perspective. And my personal hope is that I am able to work towards being the same way and being able to articulate clearly and with conviction what I'm feeling in my heart. And I just wanted to say that I'm very grateful for everyone's insights as I learn to apply it to myself. And the part on the 4 agreements, you know, being impeccable with your word, don't take things personally, you know, don't make assumptions, and always doing your best. I mean, how do you say? I feel that for myself personally, I've always been very quiet and in the shadows, always doing my best, always, I feel that I've always been true to my word and true to what we're trying to do and doing my best. But just to share tomorrow, I finally have like a second interview where I'll be meeting a lot of people for a potential role. And COVID has been awful in terms of finding a new job, and I hope to be able to present myself and the value that I offer with conviction and clarity and authenticity, and hope that they can see what I'm about. So thank you, everyone, for everything that this group means to me. That's it. Thanks.
You are awesome, Hong-san. Thank you so much. I know that everybody here just glows and loves seeing your face and when you share. And even though it's only been a few times, and even though you say things that, you know, you're nervous about, you know, sharing and things like that, I think we all see your power and your strength and your authenticity. And I know that whatever you're going to do, you know, in terms of, you know, next job and interviews and things like that, you're going to nail it. So rock and roll. Good for you.
Thank you, Stuart.
What's up, Bill?
Hi, Stuart. totally eventful as ever, my man. That's just pretty damn awesome. So it is. If I had a glass of whiskey, I'd raise it to you. Hun Sang, that was a hard act to follow. You spoke from your heart there, and you are a very courageous woman. There's no two ways about that. You may be quieted in the background, but trust me, there's a lot of people here who will take a lot out of what you have just said. So thank you for that. Stu, baggage, yep, left that all behind now, and that's, as Hun Sang was saying, it's exactly the same reason this group has made me leave all the baggage behind. And it's a fantastic feeling. It's so uplifting, so engaging. It is what it is, in that we are surrounding ourselves with like-minded people. And I loved all your slides. I'm going to have to get a lot of them printed up and put around the wall here, because they're so awesome, the statements from those guys. I mean, you can't beat it. And just to follow on from what Ivier was saying about, you know, if you're going to be the bin man or the street cleaner, be the best one that you can. I find that I've spent my life telling people that nobody's any better than us, but nobody's any worse. You know, we are all of equal shape and form, no matter what anybody likes to think or say. And I'll give you just one quick story. And it was, I was in a very nice restaurant in London about 4 or 5 years ago. And we went in, and there was a young girl there from Spain, and she was taking your hat and coat and all the usual garb. And I, as usual, I got engaged in conversation with her. And I asked, had she been there long or that? And she says, no, I've started 4 weeks, but I meant to be like a maitre d', but they've stuck me on the door, and I'm really not happy about it, and I'm really bored. And I says, hold on a minute. I says, you're the first person I meet when I come through the door. You are probably the most important person in this restaurant. And she started to, yeah, exactly. I says, by the time I'd finished the conversation, she was looking a bit sort of taken aback. But when we left, she just said to me, thank you very much. I feel a whole lot better now. So it pays to take the time to say that to people when they are feeling that little bit despondent about things. But no, hopefully she's left that baggage behind her, and I'm sure she's high flyer now. But thank you again, Stuart.
Oh, thank you, Bill. What a cool analogy of leaving your baggage at the door, right? check your ego at the door, man. Very cool. Thank you, Bill. Te Roja, Coral.
Unmuted. Kia ora, Stuart. Behana koe? Tongue-tied. Hun Sang. My darling, you are just wonderful. Do you know, Hun Sang, I trained as an opera singer, and I couldn't take solo parts because my head overruled my talent, and I couldn't come out and sing. But in front of, as long as I was with choral or the choir, that was no problem. But here you are coming out on your own, and I am just blown away. You impressed me. And it's so, because I heard you speak, I put my hand up. And quite often I put my hand up, I put my hand down. Put my hand up, I put my hand down. Because those nerves still eat at me, even today. And I realized that actually it's got a lot to do with what Stuart was saying, to erase a lot of personal history. We're working on that. It's an ongoing project. But one of the things that you said, Stuart, was about being pinned down by other people's thoughts. Now, as a Māori girl, I was brought up that we must know our mountain, our river, our sub-tribes. These things are what carry us through life. If we don't know these things, then we don't belong anywhere. But actually, with what Adrian was saying, and since 1984, I haven't lived in my at home in New Zealand. I've lived in foreign countries. I've lived in Bulgaria, in Montenegro, in Greece, in Albania. And every time I have, like Adrian said, you just feel free. You don't feel like you have to live up to other people's expectations. And so I didn't realize actually that I was reinventing myself in those places. But one of the things that I was sad about is that I haven't taught the language and the culture that is so inherent part of me. I haven't taught that to my children or to my grandchildren. But now I don't feel guilty because I feel, you know, there are so many resources available for them that if that's the route they want to take, they can go and learn it. There's nothing stopping them. And so they can reinvent themselves. And if they want to bring that old family history back into their lives, then that's open to them. But Stuart, fantastic. And Stuart, my pen was smoking hot because you were so fast with those slides. I couldn't keep up. So could you please post them on the resources in the website, if John lets you, of course. But thank you so much, Stuart. That was brilliant. And Hun-san, you are my inspiration, baby.
Both of you guys, you are warriors. Coral, you are a warrior, and I'm everything you said really moved me because of this sort of dichotomous experience of reinventing ourselves and then also being able to honor and acknowledge our culture, our tradition, our heritage. And I think that there's still a way that you can encourage and empower your children and your grandchildren to, maybe spark an interest in the old ways or their heritage or where they come from. And I think that rather, and this is just my opinion, rather than saying, well, you guys can go learn that if you want, I think you would be a wonderful person to share that with them and teach that with them. And I know that, in a lot of modern cultures, right, people shun the old ways, but at the same time, there's a revival and people really understand the importance of heritage and tradition in the old ways, right? So kudos to you. And I'm gonna give you my haka face. All right, you are a warrior, Coral. Who's next? Ego, what's up, Ego?
Hi, Coral, you just warm my heart so much. Just kind of hearing your honesty just makes me emotional because, I know, you have a beautiful spirit inside out. So, Hun-san, same thing. You're just so beautiful. You have so much perspective. Being quiet doesn't mean you don't have anything powerful to say. You have a lot to say. You have a lot to bring to the table. And I know you'll nail that interview tomorrow. Stuart, every time you speak, you're just so full of knowledge and depth and inspiration. It's just, it's mind-blowing. So something you said about how some people press our buttons. And that could be a tyrant, right? I was reading a book by a guy called David Goggins. Some of you might know him. He's an ultra marathon runner, motivational speaker, ex-Navy SEAL, I believe. He wrote a book called Can't Hurt Me. And it's kind of talking about, the book is about endurance. And he mentioned when he was younger, his father was very abusive to himself and his brother and even his mother. So, those external thoughts and perspectives, for him, he was able to, even from a very young age, he was able to kind of shed that and break away from it. However, his brother wasn't able to, because he was looking for that validation, that love from his father. So, where people, are able to press one's button, it may well be that that person whose button is being pressed wants the love, they want the acknowledgement, so, but when one is able to, as an adult or, a child, if the child is able, like everyone has said, you can break away from that and reinvent oneself. There's also the thought, either thought or spoken words, where somebody might say to you, you think you're better than everybody else. The fact is, and Bill, you kind of alluded to that. The fact is, I'm not better, or we're not better than anybody else. We're not, we don't believe we are. We're all the same. However, we're doing our best at being our best selves. So it's not about whether I'm better than you or not. I'm just doing my best. I'm slaying my lane, doing my best to be my best self. Thank you.
Thank you, Ego, and thanks for your kind words, because honestly, being a facilitator here on the network, and watching you bring your A game every week, and Adrian and Glenn and Mark and Wayne, we're all helping each other to level up here. So I appreciate you and everything that you share, and thank you for your words. Virginia.
Hey, all right. So I just actually am coming on board to ask Coral if she'll sing for us a couple of notes. And you said, Coral, that you didn't take solo roles. Does that mean that you took group roles in opera? Yes, okay, you're muted.
Yes, that meant I sang with the choral or I did duets, but never on my own.
Yeah, okay. Well, how about just a couple of, which I can't do. I can't carry a tune in a bucket, and I love opera, so how about just a real quick, give us whatever you want to give us, please, please, please. We're all starving here.
You know what, you never throw your pearls just anywhere, Virginia.
We're not anywhere. And Pearl Fishers was the opera that I just saw last year.
I'll save it for another time, okay?
Okay.
I would like that too. I would like that too. Oh my God. I'll drop some.
I'm sorry, one last thing.
Please.
For Husan, on your interview tomorrow, I'm just emailing you the interview tips I talked about. Okay, and just Google, I had an interview yesterday, which was the third, and I still have a couple more to do for a very competitive promotional type, which even though you're in the company already, you still have to go through the whole interview process and the application process and everything. I'm like, what just happened to good old fashioned promotions? But anyway, if I did not have those notes in front of me of what my skills were, what I brought to the table, make sure you have questions for them at the end that shows that your interest, that is really going to make you stand out, as a lot of job skills can be learned, but what do you as a person bring to the table to help that organization? And actually, my daughter said one of the best closing questions that she says is, what could I do? You're asking them, what could I do once hired in the first 90 days to make you very happy that you selected me for the position? She says, just mind-blowing. They don't expect that. So then they're telling you what they're expecting. And that would be one of the last, because they're always going to ask you at the end, do you have any questions for us? And don't say no. Always have like 2 or 3 questions. All right, so that'll be great. Take your time, relax. It's okay to say, that's a really good question. Let me think about it. So anyway, but I'm just emailing you those as well. And if anybody else is in that similar position, I can forward these documents to you as well. Okay, good luck, everybody. Coral, I'm not going to forget.
my God,
Thank you.
that's great. Thanks for sharing some interview tips. I like the concept of having the question for them at the end. I also think Olivier mentioned something about giving an answer to a question that shows, let's say, your self-image and your level of empowerment, and to surprise people with those things so that they have no choice but to hire you. All right, Koila.
Hello, Hong Sang. Breathe, relax, and know that you're the best person for the job. And that is the best way you can go into an interview, I think. And more than that, I can't really say, but yeah, just don't tighten up. Just remember to breathe. It's hard sometimes to remember that small thing. And then that will help you to relax and you'll be fine. My love to you. And Coral, just a small idea from me, having heard what you said. How about you write a book for your kids and your grandkids, so that they can have it if they want it and not if they don't, and having something that you have written, I'm sure, I would love to have that from my parent or grandparent. I think they'd like that. And Stuart, darling, that was just wonderful. Thank you very much. And for thoughts on the personal history thing, my take on that would be, I think you can't get rid of your actual facts of who your parents were and that kind of thing. But what you can do is get rid of the story that you tell yourself about that. I think that is the most important thing, because we all dramatize things somewhat. I know we all of us have had horrible things happen to us, but you can, I think the Buddha called it the second arrow. We have this story that turns itself into a tape that keeps going on and on and on and on and on, and that is what we need to get rid of, really. We don't need to just throw out our entire history if we don't want to. and that's all I've got to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Koila. I want to know what the first arrow is.
Oh, the first arrow is the thing that actually happened. So say, one of the things I use it for is if I have a tweak, or a pain, or I feel ill, then you have that initial thing. That's your first arrow. So that's happened. I've hurt my knee. Ow. First arrow. Second arrow is, oh, I've damaged it really severely. Oh, that really hurts. Oh, it hurts more. Oh, I'm lame. Oh, I can't walk at all. That is the second arrow. And we have that going round in our head. And if you watch after you've hurt yourself or something's happened, you can see this little train of thought. And if you can just catch it and stop it, it's amazing how quickly that thing you thought was getting worse stops.
Well, and that's
not always going to happen, but I find that really helpful.
I think that's the challenge, in all things, is to somehow, eliminate that negative self-talk, or change our inner dialogue and things like that. And I appreciate what you said about personal history, because again, I think that it's a challenging concept for a lot of people, because we have these feelings about our family and our history and our lineage. And I just try and separate. That's one part of who I am. And then there's sort of this other, infinite part. And I think, if people get too hung up on, let's say, being offended by that concept even, right? Because we would agree that the Buddha had to erase his personal history in order to achieve enlightenment, right? And if you are, let's say, taking that to the nth extreme in terms of, being a warrior or being in a steep or being a yogi or anything like that, right? Detachment and all those things come in degrees. But I think for us in our lives, I just wanted to bring that concept up where we can separate ourselves as much as we need to in order to sort of reinvent ourselves. And that's really the concept that I wanted to share with you guys. Thank you, Koila. Cyril, what's up, brother?
Sorry, it took a while to get the phone working. Well done, Stuart. As always, an amazing gift you gave us today, and the contributions from everyone has been amazing too. I just wanted to give something from my perspective. I've always found that I worked very hard as soon as I left home to get rid of, to start working on my baggage. And I've always found it to be a growing experience to work past it. I've probably said it before. I got counseling almost as soon as I left home because I knew there was a lot to get through. So, and what I've always found is, as a gift, is that the more I understand myself, I understand others as well, because often those things are in other people as well, and it makes it easier to identify where they're coming from and to so it's that thing about where there's a threat, there's often an opportunity. Yeah, the more I get to know myself, I found, and my past, the more I get to know other people and how they function, and to be and to try and be patient, and with the fact that there's one thing I learned a long time ago from just watching myself sometimes, is there are times we do things we wish we hadn't done. And when I realized that about myself, I realized that's often true of other people too. So it's good to try and ignore some of the stuff that other people come out with, because ultimately a lot of them, if they're good people anyway, they'll regret it anyway. And so moving straight past it and not even taking it on is good for you, and it's good for them because it helps them to get past the fact that they did something a little silly. So my 10 cents worth. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Brother Cyril. Thanks for your share, man. Nice to see you, please. All right, we're a couple minutes after the top of the hour. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. If there's any burning desires, as Napoleon Hill would say, feel free to raise a hand and share. Otherwise, we'll pop off here in a moment. A couple things I want to mention. One, I saw in the chat that people were requesting the slides, and so what I'll do is I'll turn that slideshow into a PDF, and I will upload it to the Facebook page on the files section if anybody's interested in that. And then this evening, we have another session of Adventures in Mindset at 8 p.m. Eastern. And if you guys would love to join me, I would love to have you there. John, you there, buddy? You want to close out, or you want me to call it?
That's it. That's a wrap. We'll see everybody tonight on Adventures in Mindset, Tales from the Trail with Stuart. It's Stuart Day.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Cheers, everybody. God bless. Have a great day.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.